All right, welcome to VP Culture Value Science class. This is class number 7, and we're going to be focusing on the experiential value of nobility this time. Now, nobility is an important value in the whole realm of work because it deals a lot with the areas of creating things. So when we're discussing things, we've been discussing how the little things, the creational values that we do, lead to experiences that we create for human beings or for the people that we're valuing. So when we expand experiential values, we were looking at the calming values that are the foundation for relationships, and the excitatory values are where we expand out into actually doing some work in the world, where we're sort of pushing our energy out into the space of interacting with others and with our teams. So when we go back to here to the calming, we're building the relationship. This is the foundation. Trust is the cornerstone, and then you can get to harmony, which is working together, and then peace is the result. If you can get to that, then you know that you're doing that one correctly. So on the excitatory experiential values, we've got wisdom, nobility, and joy. Today we're focusing on nobility. We're working together and we're working hard for the sake of others. So nobility. How is nobility defined? Primary question we have for nobility is, are we living for self or others? This makes a huge difference as to how you are going to do life, how you're going to do work. Do you live for self or others? We're going to have 3 sub-values that will help us define nobility. Nobility is provision, protection, and excellence. And like I said, nobility is what we think of most when we think of work. We're keying in on the things that we do for others and for their benefit. And this is where a lot of times companies will have this narrow focus on nobility and they'll neglect some of the other values. It's very important to understand nobility because it does deal with a large part of our work in the workplace. So let's talk about provision. Provision is providing for others, but what else? It's giving to others for their sake. So this is the key, that we're giving to others for their sake. We're not doing it for our own reward. And this is really true of all the values. When you're doing the values for the sake of others primarily, not for the sake of just the value itself. So we're looking at what's not provision is working for the reward and recognition of ourselves alone. So when you're doing that, the rewards that you're looking for are really for money or for some sort of reputation, something of that sort. When you're doing that, that's your goal. Serving people, valuing people, it doesn't become your goal. Though you might be producing something that provides for others, if it's not focused on others, it'll be a selfish ambition. All right, protection. There are a lot of things that we do in companies that provide protection for others, safety for others. That's the type of service that you're offering a lot of times, and you're working for fairness and protection of others. Leaders have to spend a lot of time making sure that things are fair for others and that the overall workplace is seen as being fair, that you protect others and you create a safe place for people to work, that they don't feel like something's going to fall out of the sky. So it does also, if your workplace is involved in areas of justice, or if your workplace is providing services, social services and things like that, healthcare, you're doing a lot of protecting in your overall workplace. All right. So what if you're not protecting? Again, you're doing it for posture and reputation. There's a lot of times people will put on the airs of doing things for others, but really they're just doing it for themselves and for their own reputations. So again, make sure that you're not protecting others just so that you can be seen by others. A good story I heard is in the military. 2 military people were speaking together and they're like, sometimes I get discouraged. Nobody sees what we're doing here. We're just off in some base somewhere. We repair these machines so that others can go and fight. Nobody knows our names. Nobody even seems to care. Well, that's when you're doing it for others. When nobody cares, it makes it even more noble. You see what I'm saying? Noble people work for others, protect others, not for the sake of being recognized or some reward. They do it merely for the sake of valuing others. That's what makes work truly noble. Okay, so let's look at excellence. Now, again, this is another characteristic of work, doing excellent work, doing things to the best of one's ability, producing to the highest standards possible. When you're doing your work, are you doing it as best as you can, given the resources and energy that you have? Now, that doesn't mean we're going to reach perfection every single time, but it does mean we're going to try to do the best with what we have. Sometimes just doing the best is the best you can do. So, trying to reach excellence to the highest ability is something that we should be striving for. And that's a value in the workplace. It's fine craftsmanship. It's excellent services. It's paying attention to the details and things like that. So you can see how this is a very important tool in the workplace. And then not having excellence is getting away with doing the least possible or less than possible. Doing sort of 90% of a job. So that you can just schlep off and get to the next thing. That's less than excellent. Sometimes there's a degree of efficiency that you have to get things done, and you have to measure out how fastidious you need to be in certain circumstances. What's good enough might be an excellent way to do things. So, on the other hand, we shouldn't be trying to just get out of work so that we can comfort ourselves in the process. So excellence is also about the quality, the craftsmanship, doing a great job, making a great work of art. Those are the types of things that lead to excellence. And that's what we're talking about here in this particular value. So that's what nobility is. Nobility is provision, protection, and excellence. These are the things that make up this mighty value that is kind of the core of the energetic experiential values that we have. Now, we've been talking about the dilemma, the discussions that you could have. How do we create nobility? How do we neglect nobility? So let's look at what those conversations might look like. When you're talking about provision, who benefits from the work that you do each day? What distracts you from the realization that people may benefit from your work? You might get down in the details and not actually see things. Have a conversation about how your product or service or daily work enhances the protection of others. Maybe you're an insurance person and it protects somebody's house, their life savings. What opportunities are you missing to help others feel heard with the people you work with? So, making things fair. What opportunities are you missing on making things feel fair? Excellence. What does it feel like when you've done something really, really well? And what causes you to compromise from doing your very, very best? So these are the type of conversations and dilemmas that you can have. And you can even get more specific in terms of like, hey, if we do this quality control procedure, how is that going to affect fairness? How is that going to protect safety? So those are the type of conversations, according to Harvard Business Review articles, that you need to do in order to stimulate the dialogue, the reality. Making values real is doing this kind of work instead of just leaving it in the theoretical realm. Okay, so that should bring you into from creational values to experiential values. We're trying to connect those two and make them real. Make connections for people so they know how they work together. Now, here's some of the science behind this. Now, Matthew Lieberman is a major social scientist, and he wrote a groundbreaking book called Social: Why Our Brains Are Wired to Connect, which relates very closely to our whole process of VP culture, one of my favorite books. And in terms of his take on the science of protection, he's saying that 20% increases in productivity happen when the workplace is considered fair and an even playing field for others within the organization. So protection as something that you need to really keep top of mind as a leader and be able to create within your workplace that experience. So here's a story about protection. Unfortunately, there was a CFO that Sheryl Beckholder had noticed in her organization, and he just went off on one of his coworkers. She was just feeling like she was being demolished. He was laying into her, and he was doing this in the workroom in front of everyone. How bad she was, how neglectful she was, and was using just the harshest language ever, just a really stern dressing down. And his anger and his disapproval was very apparent in his emotional demeanor as well. So Cheryl noticed this from her office through the glass, and later on that afternoon, she called him into her office and said, she just had to have the question like this: was this your best? Was that the best that you could do? And then that CFO, his total demeanor changed, his shoulders fell, and he actually started crying in front of her and said, that was actually probably one of the worst situations I've ever produced, the worst experiences I've ever created in my lifetime. And I just feel so bad. And then he turned around and went out into that room and just apologized publicly, not only to her, but to the entire team who heard all of this, to make things right. Now, he's going to have to work to build back trust over time because he broke it like that. But the fact that he made a repair that quickly and was that candid with his team to be able to say, this is not me. I don't behave like this. I don't want to create these experiences for you. I regret doing that. That went a long way for rebuilding trust and rebuilding harmony within a team that he had shattered by his misbehavior. So even when protection is violated, we can come alongside of each other and help each other build it back. So here's a story about excellence. Kind of a funny story. Steve Jobs was known for his demanding nature in pushing products to be their best. And so he took a prototype of the iPod and he threw it into a fish aquarium because they were like, the product engineers are like, we can't get any more space out of this. We can't make it any smaller. And he noticed all of these bubbles coming out as it was sunk in the water. He said, there's a lot of air in there. That means there's probably more room that you can get out of this. So they went back to the drawing board, and you could see one of the final products is much smaller than some of the original products. And he kept making it smaller and smaller and more compact with more memory, faster, longer battery lives. So the product was excellent. The software was excellent. And it sold tens of millions of products. And it put Apple as a leader in the product space. And it was one of their leading products for years. So pushing the excellence made an excellent experience for so many of us that use these products. So it's a great idea to push things to the excellence because everyone in the world is going to handle that and touch that, and that product is going to be part of their world. Let's jump into the questions now. All right, what does it feel like to behave with nobility? Question number 1. Question number 2, how do you know you're doing things for the sake of others and not just for personal reward? Question number 3, what prevents you from understanding what others require to perceive fairness? What keeps you back from that? And then question number 4, how does it feel when you do something to the very best of your ability? How does that feel? All right, so that brings us to the end of this lesson on experiential values, focusing on nobility. We hope that you understand that nobility is made up of protection, provision, and excellence, and that those 3 things make this core value of our work experience so important, and how we do this for the sake of others. So thanks for joining us for lesson number 7, and we look forward to seeing you in lesson number 8 coming up shortly.